Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to the Paranormal Portal Night Terrors. Did you like the flourish? That was new. The Night Terrors. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. I'm here with you to keep you company and to guide this journey through the Paranormal Portal. I hope you have fun. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here doing it with you. Thank you all for joining us, and hope you had a great day and are having fun doing whatever it is you're doing during this really weird time that we're in. But I hope that the portal can help make it a little bit better. So we're going to try. During the course of our show, the phones will be open. Doesn't mean I'm always paying attention to the call queue, but I'll try. I'll do my best. If you want to call in and be a part of the show, the number is 720-923-0500. And I will do my best to answer your call, as it were. So definitely call in and be a part of it. I'd love to hear from you. If you have something paranormal of your very own to add, but I guess that's all I got on the front end. So I hope you all are ready because it's time for bed. All right, we are at it and underway here on the Paranormal Portal. So hope you're ready to be entertained because that's what I got for you. Hopefully about 1 hour of full entertainment if I'm doing my job, and if not, then hopefully you leave here with at least a little bit of a smile and didn't feel you wasted your time. No, I mean, I know everybody always has fun on the shows because that's what we do here. We have a good time. We talk about the paranormal and explore some ideas and thoughts and just have a good time with it. So if you're not familiar with the shows, the Night Terrors are the shorter format paranormal shows, about an hour, roughly, sometimes a little over, sometimes a little under, but right around 50 minutes to an hour is what I shoot for on these shows. And we just go through a lot of different paranormal stories, most commonly ghostly encounters, which, I enjoy doing. And it's certainly a lot of room for discussion in there. So if you want, if you don't necessarily have a paranormal thing you want to share, but you'd like to speak to some of the topics that we're talking about or some of the ideas that I may put on the table, feel free to call in as well. I love to hear your thoughts. I don't ever pretend I got this stuff figured out. I don't know that I do or don't. I just have ideas and I put them out there on the table, and hopefully you guys can find some value in that, or maybe a little bit of understanding, or maybe it'll help you in whatever you may be dealing with, or some ideas you have. But I'd love to discuss them because I don't pretend that my ideas are absolutely right and you have to believe them. These are just things that are occurring to me as I'm going through it and trying to understand the phenomena, as it were. So the first story sounds kind of cool. It's got a cool topic. It has to do with non-human entities. In fact, it allegedly has to do with a goblin. And this is something we really don't hear about often at all. In fact, it's incredibly rare. There are stories that there are these goblin-like creatures out there, ladies and gentlemen, and it's an odd one. Could there be these little beings or bigger beings? I don't know. I don't know how big a goblin is supposed to be, but I think, generally speaking, they're about the same ballpark as the little people. I think, which is around 2 to 3 feet tall. And but the goblins are usually, to my understanding, really hell-bent on causing problems. Now, the curious part is I don't know how people differentiate between them. Like, how do you know a duende from a puckwudgie, from any number of other ones, to a goblin, to a gnome? I would think in most cases, I don't think people probably get really good looks at these things. However, they come up with their own terminologies for them. And maybe they do. Maybe some of these cases people are really seeing them pretty clear. Now, the gnomes, obviously, they look like the garden gnome statues. They're reported to look a lot like that. They're apparently about the same size. They apparently wear the pointy hats. And people report seeing them and encountering them a lot of times in woods and forests. And sometimes they're benign and sometimes they seem aggressive, but there's certainly a full spectrum of personalities attributed to them. The puckwudgies, on the other hand, are these little scraggly looking things. They apparently may very well be wearing like skins of other animals and stuff to as a form of camouflage, as I understand it. According to Robin Moonshadow, who's been a guest on our show a number of times, and they are apparently really don't like people at all. In fact, if they see people, they just as soon sink poison arrows into you as look at you. There's a lot of hatred there, and based upon legend, I guess maybe there deserves to be, maybe there doesn't. I don't know. But First Nation legends, of course, speak of the Pukwudgie starting out as a very benevolent kind of creature and then turning kind of evil when they became jealous of people's relationship with the giants. At that time, were considered very benevolent to the First Nations peoples. Or at least some of them were, not obviously not the Lovelock Cave kind, but the kind that are more from the East Coast. The Lovelock Cave one, of course, is more Central or West Coast type of red-haired giants with the double rows of teeth and like to eat people. But the kind that the First Nations have legendarily were very benevolent. They were helpful. They tried to help people and stuff. And so there was apparently some kind of competition that between the Pukwudgies to help people and the giants to help people. And the giants won, and the Pukwudgies became jealous and decided to hate everybody. So they started attacking and raising hell wherever they go. So I don't know what you think of that. I think it's wild, but there are reports of Pukwudgies coming in too. So these other kind of creatures are apparently out there, and I don't know what it means. I don't know what does that mean? I don't know. It's kind of twisted. It's kind of wild and weird, and it just goes to show you the dynamic nature of reality again. And I'll say that over and over and over. That what the paranormal illustrates is that we don't have this sorted out. We don't know everything that's going on here in this existence of ours. There's still a lot of mystery. There's still a lot of treasures to discover. And perhaps by discovering those, we'll learn a lot more about ourselves as well. So anyway, let's get to this story that apparently has to do with goblins. I got to drink some more. I'm sorry, I'm kind of dry. The fresh snap of plastic. Just like Mom used to make. I'm just kidding. We never had bottled water growing up. We had well water. It was the best water, though. It really was. Let's go. And this one is apparently coming from Montana. So this is in Duke's stomping grounds over there. And it says, I have so many stories, too many to count, really. But this story happened when I was around 6 years old and was my first encounter with the paranormal in about 1994. My father would take me to visit my uncle at Fort Kipp on the Fort Peck Indian Reservation, and at their father's house, a nothing town, which he lived outside of as a child. This place gives off feelings of hopelessness and sorrow, even just driving past it. And I felt this when I was a child. The area of this homestead has no houses around it for miles, just trees and hills. And they would drink coffee and talk for hours. And on this occasion, I was playing in the front of my uncle's deck and ramp. He was in a wheelchair. And I remember just digging in the dirt, being a kid, and finding a silver dollar in the ground when I had this sudden feeling that I was being watched. Well, I ignored it for a few moments, and then I looked south. Not far off, I'd say 40 to 50 yards away, was a tree, the closest tree to the house. And I could see the left side of this tree was completely vertical, right as rain, but the right side wasn't. And I could see a figure peeking around from the tree. The thing is, it was the same color as the bark of the dead tree. It looked one, with it never moving once. It looked one with it never moving once. I don't know what the hell that means, but its fingers were wrapped around the trunk, long and pointed head, egg-shaped eyes, huge and hollow. Its mouth had a smile unlike anything I had yet to see. It was staring at me. Imagine the scariest part of the scariest movie you've ever seen. I couldn't move. Complete paralysis. It must have been a whole minute. Whatever it was, it knew I was aware of it. My thought was, I wonder how fast it is. Then something snapped, and I ran as fast as my legs would take me up the stairs inside. My father and his brother were in the kitchen table, and I told my dad, panicked, to hurry quick, come outside, there's something watching me. I grabbed his hand and led him to the spot I was and said, look. But when I pointed at the tree, I could see that it was a normal tree now, both sides, vertical. I couldn't speak. I felt very silly for a moment, but I knew what I saw was real. All my dad said was, don't worry about it. Don't think about it. It's okay. And he led me inside. My father and I are Native American, and I guess we're blessed with gifts we didn't want. As I grew older, he told me more and more about what he was able to see, and he told me such outlandish things in such an honest way that I knew he couldn't be lying. Things he saw on the same land I saw the goblin, the land he grew up on. If you guys like this story, I'll keep them coming. Also, if anyone wants to take a guess on whatever it was that I saw, be my guest. I don't know. Could it be spiritual? Sure. Could it be physical? Sure. Could it be multidimensional? Sure. That's the one thing about this stuff is there doesn't seem to be the smooth dividers, that we like so well. It's like, spiritual is intangible, physical is real, but then you get these things that kind of have a foot in both worlds, and can they move between realities seamlessly? Do they have a multidimensional existence where they aren't confined to one system or another? They can move between them at ease. And is that unnatural, or is that completely natural? And I think it's natural. And here's the thing. In a lot of our legends and a lot of our histories and a lot of our stories coming from many different cultures around the world, there has been reports of these incredible people that lived in these different places, in these different villages, in these different systems. But they seem to be able to do so much more than other people. And they seem to be capable of superhuman feats. They seem to be able to move, distances in an instant. They seem to be able to float. They seem to be able to know what everybody was thinking. They seem to be able to read your mind. And so these people are the examples. They are the targets, I guess. And they remind us what's possible. And I don't think that they're unnatural. I think that they're very natural. I think that they are some kind of perhaps divine examples that are given to us in our different lands and worlds to show us what's possible, what we are capable of. I think we're capable of incredible things. We just don't know it anymore. We don't know that we're multidimensional. We don't know that we are, able to exist in a different state than the one that we've been born and stuck in. We just think this is it. This is it until I die. But there are these stories of people that do these things. And are they all wrong? They might be embellished, but there might be a core of truth in all of them. There might be a nugget of truth in all of them that displays possibility and displays potential. What is our potential? We know we only use 10% of our brains roughly. That percentage varies a little bit, but you know what I'm saying. We've got a lot more going on that we seem to be able or capable of using, but we just haven't sorted it out yet. So what would we be capable of if we had the full faculty of our brains? If you're just thinking in terms of physical mechanisms, and what are our brains? Are they a focal point for the convergence of our soul and our body? Is the brain that? And I don't know. I'm not trying to answer that, but we know that mentally we're capable of incredible superhuman feats of mental ability. There's these savants that are come into our world, and they can just play piano. They can just look at something once, like the skyline of New York City, just a glimpse of it, and then go and recreate it perfectly on big panels of paper or whatever medium. They can recreate every single detail of something they glimpsed only once. Those are potentials, and we do not exist and live to our potential. We are existing and living to maybe an expectation, maybe a belief, a paradigm, but we're capable of so much more. And what else could we capable of? Telepathy, maybe bilocation, who knows? And I know that may sound really bizarre to some people, but we have these examples in our histories of people that do so much more. We have these examples in the form of savants and these incredible people that defy all odds and expectations and perform miraculous things. And they're among us. They're here, and they show us what's potential. What is our potential? So I don't know. I think we're capable of incredible things, but I don't expect everybody has to agree with that. But I think that we are certainly capable of a hell of a lot more than what we're doing. And that I think we all can agree on. All right, let's go to the next one. And this one is coming from Connecticut. And it has to do with apparitions, voices, and touches. Not very long story either, but let's get into this one. It says, for this story to make sense, I really need to describe something to you, so just bear with me. And in my room, I sleep on my couch, which is directly across from my doorway. I say doorway because I don't have a door, so keep that in mind. I'm back again, and this time it's got nothing to do with a Ouija board. And anyway, just a few years ago is when I started to experience things. So the first thing I experienced on my own was knocking. I was in my room asleep and suddenly awoke up around 2 a.m. I looked at my clock and it was like, why in the world am I awake? I was really confused, and that's when I heard it. Someone knocked at my doorway. Well, I looked and no one was there. I was still half asleep, so I just called out, come in. The coldest breeze I have ever felt swept over me. I live in New England, so we've had some bad weather before, but this was awful. The weirdest part, it was summer. So anyway, I started to shiver, so I called out, hello? And at this point, my mind is catching up with my surroundings, so I started to think that it was my brother playing tricks on me. He lives right across the hall, so it's possible that he knocked and then just went back into his room. I went across the hall, fully intending to yell at him, and I find him soundly asleep. I was confused. I stood there for a second, dumbfounded, before finally going back into my own room. I get in there, and the temperature had dropped at least 5 degrees, and I was like, whoa. Then I got scared because if it wasn't Tyler, then was it really a ghost? After a while, I figured that it had to have been a ghost because it knocked on the air. So anyway, the phantom knocker struck again this morning. It was 4, and I snapped awake. I was so mad because I have school today. I'm typing this during my computer class. Shh. He's just totally not doing his computer work. Then I hear 2 sharp knocks at my doorway again, and this time I said, you can't come in. I didn't want my room to be any colder than it already was. The thing knocked again, so I told it to go away. And then it gave me a heart attack because it knocked on my window, which is right next to my head, and I almost fell off my couch in fear. It was all I could do to stop myself from just screaming. I was petrified. Whatever it is really wanted to come in, but I said no again, and I haven't heard a knock since. It was just weird, and after a few years, it just randomly comes back, and well, it didn't do me any harm, thankfully, unless you count making me grumpy from lack of sleep. So that's interesting. That's interesting. The person said no, and it wasn't. It didn't seem to like that very much. But was it a permission knock? So when we're hearing these knocks, are they permission knocks? I don't know. I've never ever heard that correlation for spirits before. Certainly we hear it for the black-eyed kids, and of course the vampire mythos deals with needing permission. But I suppose it could be a spiritual thing too. What 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 do we do that grants them permission though? That's what's kind of weird. So if they just knock and it continues, is no answer an acquiescence? I don't know. I'm just playing with that idea. I'd never really considered that before in terms of a spiritual experience. But I know that if you're dealing with a haunting and you say, "Hey, you can't be here. This is not okay for you to be here." Sometimes, many times actually, the activity will decrease sharply, if not stop altogether. But do they need a permission? Interestingly enough, there is an old saying, and I don't know how true this is, but the old phenomena of the knocking door and nobody's there. That if you hear a knock on your door and you look out and you don't see anybody, don't open it, because by opening it, you could be letting something in. I don't know. Is that possible? Sure, I guess. And does opening the door, is that an acceptance? I don't know. That's curious. I've never heard that before, or at least equated it to the need of a permission. So I find that really interesting. Just food for thought, ladies and gentlemen. I don't pretend to know. Again, these are just my ideas as they occur to me. And since I get a microphone, you get to hear it, whether you want to or not. But if you didn't want to hear it, you probably wouldn't be here. So I guess you must want to hear it. So let's continue on. Our next one, oh, Jesus. Oh, that's so gross. Oh, no, there's a terrible ad. That is so terrible. Oh, it's disgusting. So I turned the page to a link, and there's an ad for earwax removal, and they're like showing a close up of somebody's ear, and they're pulling out a big golden chunk of earwax. Oh, that's gross. I didn't need that anytime. Ugh, don't these people know how to use a Q-tip, for God's sakes? How do you pull out something that big out of your ear? Ugh. Okay. I didn't need that tonight, ever. Not any night, as it turns out. I don't ever need to see that. But it's there. All right, next up. This one comes from Utah, or Utah, if you pronounce it wrong. Just saying. It has to do with a haunted life, so this is a collection of a lot of different things. Yeah, exactly, Kathy. It's gross. I got to scroll it right off of my freaking page here. Hold on. It says, I was born in 1970. My mom and dad, now divorced for the last 22 years, bought a newly constructed home in a suburb on Salt Lake City. I was one at the time of moving from another house in the neighborhood that we were renting from. My parents were excited that this was their first home since being married. I was the third of 6 kids, 3 yet to be born. Yeah, that's usually how that math works out. But anyway, I had 2 older brothers, ages 5 and 6, and my mom and dad wanted more kids, but they were spacing them out before each pregnancy of my 3 following siblings, and before she knew she was pregnant again, she would hear a baby crying in the back room. It's spelled wrong. It was Here. That's why I turned my head. I was like, here. Okay, Hear. You hear a baby crying in the back room, and sure enough, she would be pregnant. When I was about 4 years old, I began having extreme nightmares of witches and things coming to life in my house. Well, my mom would have to sit with me to help me go to sleep, and in these years, my little sister and baby brother were born. My mom had my little brother by then, and we were only 13 months apart, some spacing indeed. And she was pregnant with my little sister in the same years that I was having these nightmares, from about the ages of 4 and 9 until 9. I was also seeing people in the house, seeing fiery faces in the window looking at me. Fiery meant bright, lit up ghostly faces. Howling sounds that were not dog-like, faces peering out of the ceiling when I was in bed, and probably the most scary for me, before the man in black were the times when I was so scared I had to sleep with my parents. Feeling their bed shake and seeing the faces from the ceiling and not being able to wake my parents up. My parents never felt the bed shake and never, or claimed to never, have seen or felt anything strange aside from the baby cries of another small issue explained in paragraphs below. The sightings of the faces and sounds and bed shaking began to go away around the age of 9, but what replaced it wasn't any better. I began seeing a man completely dressed in black, with a black hood. I never saw his face. He was almost everywhere in the house that I was, and he would be standing in a corner, sitting on a chair, or standing in a door frame or hallway. I was scared of him, but he never did anything to harm me, just looked at me all the time. I decided to tell my mom and dad about it, and with my past history and other past history in the house with the crying babies, and also another occurrence when my dad's father came to him in his room several days after he died, left my parents to become alarmed and called in some religious authorities in our town to have an exorcism. My parents didn't call it that. They just referred to it as having people come in and pray for light and for the Spirit of Jesus in the house to get rid of this man in black. Years later, upon reflecting of those days, it was truly an exorcism. The man in black went away and I never saw him again. Well, I'm 38 now, and several months ago, I decided to share my story with my little sister, who is 34 now. I told her about it and she was dumbfounded. She had seen the man in black also as a child, but claims to not have sensed or felt fear from him. But she was also 4 years younger than I was. She also claims to have seen him after I no longer saw him. I'd like to know if others have experienced in their homes, and if this man in black is fairly common, or who or what he may have been. Since the man in black has left my life, I've grown up, got married, and had 3 children. I've never seen him again, but I have had many, many other out-of-the-ordinary phenomena happen to me and my oldest daughter, who is now 16. Well, she sees auras, children in her rooms that disappear, people coming out of walls or doors and then disappearing. And she also had a dream in 1996 when my older brother died. I asked her to draw me a picture, and it was of 3 beings floating about 2 to 3 feet off the ground. 2 were wearing white gowns, and my brother was wearing what she saw him in last. He had come to see her and my middle daughter and took them all on a walk, played with, talked to them, and read them stories 2 weeks before he died. He'd never done that before, and after he died, we believe he knew spiritually or subconsciously he was about to pass over and came to say goodbye to our family. His passing was quick and completely unexpected. The 2 of the white gowns had no faces, and I asked my daughter why, and she said, because that, pointing, is God, and that one, pointing again, is Jesus. And I'm not supposed to see their faces. My brother was smiling, and we were not religious in any way at the time. I had left my church when my eldest child was born and didn't return until 1999 to another faith. My eldest daughter also sees lights around people, and this is what she would call them as a child, and would constantly whoosh her hands around and feet. She would whoosh her hands around and feet to see the light follow her on her hands and feet. Okay. As she got older and we became more educated on auras, we believe it is what she sees. Mine is always green. When my last baby was born, my oldest came to me and said my baby's light was white. And she was very, very sick at the time, and I was very curious to see what the color white meant. On the internet, it said white was sick or ill. And I'm not sure if that is the truth, because I've never really looked in depth to reading or seeing auras, because I just don't see them. Her ability to see them seems to be diminishing, and now can only see them when she is tired or concentrates. Anyhow, my family seems to have a past and present of the weird. So that's very interesting, and I find the kind of that last line interesting, that she seems to be diminishing. Her ability seems to diminish until she's very tired or concentrates hard. And maybe that's the big difference. Maybe that's the big distinction between why it's so effortless with children is the state of mind. Again, we've talked about it many times that as adults, as we age, we get busy. We get tied down with the mundane, with the mindless pursuits of life. And I don't mean mindless as if they don't matter, but in the grand scheme of things, whether or not you well, I can't say that, but I was going to say whether or not you pay your electric bill on time probably isn't that big a deal, but maybe it is if you don't want late fees or whatever. But you know what I mean? Is it a big thing in the grand scheme of things? No, but it becomes something that encumbers our mind and our thoughts, and that and a million other things existing in our world. We become so overburdened with our lives and with the many facets of our life, especially in this modern age. We've got so many things going on, so many issues of conflict and trauma. And if you look at current events, I often wonder, why is there such a drive to create division and to create these polarities in people, to be angry and untrusting of each other? And you got to wonder, is it possible that there's some nefarious purpose to keep us unspiritual or unspiritually minded? And the importance of stepping out of those paradigms and getting back to what does matter. And I think there's something to that. I don't know if it's as nefarious and intelligent as it may sound. I think it's just there are some people or groups that like us to be focused on stupid things rather than on the big pictures. Because if we're focused on the big pictures, then our attention is on the big picture that they are operating in. I don't know how else to say that. I don't get into conspiracy theories. I don't know how. I mean, I'm just not informed enough to be involved in those kind of things, and I don't want to be informed enough, to be honest with you. And maybe that's naivety on my part, but it's just like my journey is about progressing me in this world, And so as we get encumbered with all of this minutia and ridiculousness of our world, our attention focuses down and down and down until we're just looking through this tunnel. We're looking through life with through this tunnel, and we're not seeing the grand beauty of things, and we're not growing like we could or should be. And so in this sentence, in that story where she can only see the auras now when she's tired or really concentrates on it, that's kind of a statement of our mind lately. In our adult lives or in our older lives, as we become tied down with the world and the worldly worries. And, I think that's a great illustration of it. So she didn't lose the ability. She just had to search for it. What used to be effortless and easy now was a chore to her, or she had to be in such a state of exhaustion that she wasn't thinking of everything else because she couldn't. She was so tired that all she could do is just be herself in her moment. And that's when they became readily available again and became apparent to her. So I think that that's a great illustration of our need to slow our minds down, to get refocused and recentered, and to see the world with a more true or complete vision. I just think there's so much importance in that statement. And I don't know if I can emphasize it enough, but we are so exhausted all the time mentally because our world demands it. And I think we need to demand opportunities, maybe every week, maybe even every day. Give yourself 10 minutes to just meditate or 15 minutes or a half hour, whatever you're capable of doing, and just breathe. Just sit and breathe. Empty your mind and sit and breathe. And I think that a lot of the things that really stress us out and become so heavy may lose their importance a bit because we'll have a clearer vision and we won't be sitting, looking through that tunnel. We'll be hopefully looking at it with a more holistic vision. I don't know. I hope that makes sense. I hope what I'm saying makes sense. And I often worry about that because I'm just telling you what's going through my mind as I'm doing the show. I don't plan these shows, not to a great degree. I talk about things, and whatever comes to mind, I talk because I feel perhaps that's what somebody out there needs to hear. Maybe it's what I need to hear. There's an old saying: the teacher teaches what he most needs to learn. So maybe that's true. Maybe this is all for me, but I hope it's helping all of you as well, because I forget too. I mean, I may be aware of things, but I forget as much as anybody, maybe even more, to be who I am really and to be in touch with my whole self. But I hope that makes sense to you guys. Sorry. That was a throat gurgle. All right, I got better. Let's go to the next one, and this one is coming from Arizona. And Arizona, apparitions, voices, and touches we're dealing with. This is a short one. Very short, so this won't take long. So what I'm about to tell you is something I thought I would never experience. My parents and my two brothers had gone to the store, and I decided to stay home and get my homework done. And while I was doing my homework, I suddenly heard a loud slam, which sounded like my family had returned, so I called out, "Are you all home?" But I got no reply. So I thought, maybe they hadn't heard me. Well, as I walked out of my room, I started hearing conversations, laughter, screaming, all at once. After a minute, I began to get dizzy, followed by a tingling sensation. I had no idea what I was experiencing, and when I turned around, a big, huge man appeared out of nowhere. I could see through his body. He had pale white face with a scar across his forehead. "Who are you?" I asked. But I got no reply, so I shouted, "Get out of my house." He just stood there silently. I then heard a loud crash that sounded as my mom's favorite Chinese vase broke. My heart stopped for a second. "You didn't," I thought as I turned to the man that was standing behind me. His eyes flashed white as soon as I looked at him. To this day, I still haven't told my mom what I experienced. I'm afraid she'll think that I'm crazy. If you have any comments or suggestions, please let me know. That's strange. I don't know. Especially if that's just a one-off kind of thing. I mean, that's bizarre. Stories like that are hard to process because they're just a snapshot, and there's so many questions. There's a million questions I would have for this person, like, well, that couldn't have been how it all just started. That couldn't have been the beginning. Not that it couldn't, but I'm sure there's got to be more to the story. There's just this kind of profound experience normally doesn't happen just poof, it happened and poof is done. So I don't know. It's not that I don't believe the person. I believe that what they're talking about could very well have happened. It's just there's so many things I would want to know to make heads or tails out of that. But it's terrible if that's a true story. That's horrible. And again, everything I bring to the show is at least represented as true. Oh, this one's from an author that we've read many of hers. She's a pretty prolific experiencer and has submitted many stories. This one's not real long. It's coming out of Utah again, but it has to do with haunted places. And it says, I encountered another ghostly campsite while hiking with some friends on the Blackfoot Reservation by Mini Whitehorse Lake, a.k.a. Cooper Lake. We'd gone to the lake to fish, but several of us were not big on fishing, so we just decided to go hiking instead. Me, my ex-husband Sean, my brother Mikey, and his girl Sarah went hiking, while the rest just stayed there and fished. We'd been hiking around for about an hour when we began to smell smoke. We followed our noses until we found the source. At first, I thought it was just a small group of braves on some kind of special campout because they were all Indians dressed in a traditional costume. The group consisted of 4 men and about 40 to 45 years old, and one man who looked to be in his 50s or 60s. Since I thought they were here for a special occasion, I began to turn away. And that's when I noticed that even though a fire burned brightly in the fire pit, no one was adding fuel to it, and it never consumed any of the fuel already there. Well, I decided to see what would happen if I spoke to one of them. I stepped forward and said, "Oki," which means hi. None of them even glanced at me, and I tried once more. "Oki, I come in peace." Again, no response. I looked at the rest of the group, and they all looked as puzzled as I was. Sean thought maybe they couldn't talk to a woman for some reason, so he tried. "Oki." Nothing happened. Each of us tried in turn to get a response, but we didn't exist in their world. After us trying over and over to make contact, the camp faded away. As soon as the camp was gone, I stepped into the middle and began digging around with a stick, and after a bit of digging, I found a couple of rocks that were burned on one side as if they had been in a fire ring. We returned to the rest of the group and told them what had happened. My friend Katrina thought we were making it up, but finally agreed. We had seen something, since we all told the same story. That's cool. There again, that's an interesting one. Now, was that just a residual representation of something that had happened long ago? Could be, because there's no intelligent interaction at all. Not even a recognition, not even an acknowledgement. But could it just be some form of a time hiccup, a window through time? Maybe. And maybe that's what residual hauntings are. Maybe it's not the land recording an event. Maybe it's not that. Maybe it's not the stone tape theory. Maybe it's just a weird anomaly that comes up that's just a glimpse into another time. That could be. I don't know. Not a lot to talk about there, I don't think. I mean, those kind of things are cool. And again, it shows a fluid nature of reality, but it doesn't sound like they were seeing an intelligent thing. And I don't know if they were kind of just frozen frame or if they were moving around doing their thing. I didn't really get that from the story, but those are the questions I would have. My God, it's already almost 50 minutes in, ladies and gentlemen. How the hell does it go this fast? I've been doing this show for years now, ladies and gentlemen, and I am still amazed at how quickly they go by. It's just incredible. Absolutely incredible. Ooh, this one's a long one. I don't think we have the time for this one. Maybe. No, I don't think I want to read it anyway. It has to do with incubus. I don't like talking about those. Not because I disavow the phenomena. It's not because of that at all. It's just because I don't like discussing the whole sexual ghost thing. To me, that's just awkward. Not that it doesn't happen, not that it isn't a real phenomena, but it's just, I don't know. I try to keep this a family show, and it's hard to do those kind of stories and keep it as family friendly as possible. So I hope you understand, but I'm going to skip that one. Let's see. Oh, this one's pretty short. I think we can read this one and probably that one. Yeah, I think we can read these last two. So let's get to this one. It's coming from California. It says it has to do with family and friends visits. So somebody got a visit from family or friends, which is cool. I like these. I think these might be my favorite type of ghostly encounter because I think it's amazingly powerful when those we love that have passed on continue to make their presence known. I think that is so incredibly cathartic and healing. So let's see what it has to say. It says, my friend Jacob passed away last fall. He was only 19 years old. Everybody took it really hard. He was a smart kid. He knew a lot about a lot of really cool things, but he really did have a wild side. He was usually pretty smart about it, but this time things just didn't work out. I remember the night he passed because without knowing it, I passed the scene about 30 minutes after it all happened. There was the largest number of police cars I had ever seen in our small town. I just remember thinking that it must have been someone getting caught growing illegal substances in the woods near there. A lot of the times I feel that he is still around, especially near the place of death, which is near a main road in town, and there have been a few instances where I feel he might be making his presence known. Here they are. I was driving home from a friend's house at about 12:30, about the same time I passed the accident spot the night that he died. And I was belting out a Beatles song, one that Jacob liked, and it suddenly got icy cold in my car. I became frightened, and for some reason, I was terrified of looking in the passenger seat of my car. I turned the music off and stopped singing, and almost instantly, it got warm in my car again, and the eerie feeling was gone. The second experience was where I was about to set off on a road trip with my friend Julia. I had to make a quick stop home at first just to make sure my kitten was inside and had plenty of food. When we're gone, we always keep the radio on, and I guess it's my dad's way of warding off robbers by making them think someone is always there. A little wasteful, I know. But I turned the radio on and went to check on my kitten, leaving Julia alone in the living room, and I came back in to find the radio turning off. Turning off? It says turning off, and then on again. And at that moment, Julia jumped in her seat a little and said, with a look of true fright in her eyes, "It smells like Jacob in here." I turned the radio off and then on again, and everything was normal. We were both pretty startled by the experience, and we left immediately. And that's the whole story. Yeah. That's the whole thing. I think it doesn't sound like those experiences were very well received if he was coming back and making his presence known. It sounds like they were pretty freaked out by it. But I think, when you get a chance to look back on it, in the moment, those things, I suppose, are incredibly terrifying. But the experiences I've had, I think they're wonderful. I really do. I just think they're amazing. I was sitting in this chair at this very spot, and Don was here, and I felt a hand on my shoulder. Literally could feel every finger and a thumb on the back of my shoulder. It was like someone was standing right behind me, put their hand on my shoulder, like reassuringly. And I looked over because I thought it was Don. You may not know this, but I'm actually partially blind in this eye, and I have no peripheral vision, so I couldn't see. I just felt the hand there, and I'm like, but Don was still over there. And I was like, oh my God, Don. I told him about it. I was like, dude, I just felt his hand. And, in typical Don fashion, he's like, okay. He didn't want to talk about it too much, but the kind of stuff freaked him out a little bit. But anyway, true experience, true story. It happened. I felt it. Could it have been something with my nerves? Maybe. It may have been, but it actually felt like a hand. It felt like an impression with 4 fingers and a thumb, like over my shoulder. So, true story. Don't know who it was. I don't often get impressions from things like that, but I didn't feel freaked out. I didn't feel afraid or fearful. It just felt like a reassuring hand on my shoulder. So, I felt like it was a good thing. I don't know. To each his own. I don't know. Maybe that would freak someone else out. I don't know. And maybe there's something wrong with me. I don't know. That could be too. So this next one is probably going to take us all the way to 8 o'clock. But I want to get through it. It's coming from Montana, which is Duke's home ground again. We started on Montana. We're going to end on it, by God. That's how we roll here. So this has to do with a haunted life. Since I have so many experiences with the paranormal, I just decided to combine all of them into one post. So happy reading. My first experience with a ghost or energy of some kind happened when I was 10 years old. My mom and I lived on my grandfather's land, which was out in the country near Ballantine, Maine. Or Ballantine, Montana. I said Maine. Sorry. Ballantine, Montana. And I should mention that there's an old homestead of some kind that burnt down on that land a very long time ago, and also an Indian burial ground nearby. I walked into my room, and as I stepped through the door, a small toy that I had sitting on my shelf was suddenly thrown across the room with such force that it dented my wall, and my toy broke. Well, needless to say, I slept with my mom that night. And ever since then, I've been sensitive to paranormal activity. While living with my mom through the age of 18, I had knives fly off the tables, doors slam, cupboards open, and doors open while I was taking showers and various other events. When I was 12 years old, I moved into the biggest room of our house after my sister moved out. One night I awoke not being able to breathe. Something or someone was choking me and had a tremendous pressure on my neck. Immediately, I sat up and could breathe again. And when I switched on the light, I found finger marks on my neck, but no evidence of anything that could have possibly done it to me. Another event included what I believe to be a spirit trying to communicate with me through sound. When I was 16 years old, I had a stereo in my room just like every other typical teenager. And one night I awoke to the sound of my speaker humming in weird, rhythmic electronic sounds, almost sounding like some type of language. I listened very closely but couldn't make out any of the words. I tried turning the stereo on and off, but the same sound still prevailed. Even unplugging the stereo would not work. Finally, after about a week of these sounds, I unplugged the speaker and pulled out the wire, expecting it to stop. Unfortunately, the sound did not stop and continued to emit from the speaker, even though there was no electronic flow whatsoever. I never could make out the words that were being spoken to me, but they eventually stopped after about 2 weeks. Again, when I was 16 years old, I had a very terrifying event happen to me. One night, I dreamt that the devil kidnapped me and a couple of my friends, and he hung us on a wall by chains, and just before I woke up, he stuck his fiery hand to my chest and singed it. And when I awoke, I had a bright red handprint on my chest that burned. When I tried to take a shower, the water only irritated it and made it even more red and puffy. It didn't go away for 2 days. And to this day, I'm still terrified of having that dream again. I do have evidence of this. I took a picture of the handprint after I woke up, but unfortunately, I don't know how to post it into the story. If you'd like to see the picture, just reach out to me and I'll email it to you. Again, this was written several years ago, so I doubt that there's any way to contact the person. But about 6 months before I moved out of my mom's house, more strange things started to happen. We have an unfinished basement at my mom's house, so obviously there are tools lying around downstairs for finishing it up. Well, I woke up twice in the middle of the night to the sound of shovels and other tools being dragged along the floor downstairs. At the time, I was too afraid to go down there to see what was making the entire racket, but in the morning I did look, and when I went downstairs, all of the tools were out of place. Shovels were scattered about, buckets of nails tipped over, and various other tools were in different spots than when we had left them. Remember, I lived in the country, and there's no chance of an intruder coming in to cause this mess. At age 18, which is my age when I'm writing this, I moved out of my mom's house and into a different house with my fiance. This house is very old and used to belong to my fiance's grandparents, until his grandfather died of cancer. In the house, I started having paranormal experiences almost as soon as I moved in. The oven timer will go off at random times when neither my fiance nor I have even touched it. This has happened many times. Also, we've come home to our bathtub water running and the fan in the living room on when we both knew it was off. The experiences in this house keep getting more and more frequent and stronger as time passes. 4 nights ago, I had my first sighting of a shadow figure in my house. It was about 11 o'clock at night, and my fiance was on his way home from work. I was lying in bed with my cat, Puss. They named the cat Puss. Anyway, and just about ready to doze off into dreamland, and suddenly I felt my cat jerk her head up like something scared her. And I popped my eyes open to see what she was looking at, and coming out of my closet, I saw a shadow man. He was about 5'6" by my estimation. The apparition lasted only about 2 seconds before he disappeared, but it has haunted me for the last couple of days, And now I won't go to sleep unless my fiance is home. I thought all of this couldn't get any worse or more creepy. However, for the past 2 nights, my fiance and I have been waking up to doors creaking in our house. And the weird part, our house is so old that the only door in the entire house is the one on the outside. We don't even have a bedroom door. None of our cabinet doors squeak. And our floors have never creaked either. I don't know where this noise is coming from, but after it happens, I see a black shadow figure. It's not in the shape of a human, but rather a black blob of darkness that appears somewhere on the ceiling. I've witnessed it twice now. I don't know why I'm so sensitive to these kind of things. It's getting worse, and I'm now 4 months pregnant with my first child. And I can only hope that I don't pass the same kind of psyche off to my little one. But that seems to be what always happens in my family. Ooh, that's kind of creepy. That's strange. It's, again, I don't know, it's pretty active. Pretty active. 2 different places. I don't know. I don't think it's the same collection of experiences. I think it's probably different causations, but I think she's just sensitive. She's just tuned in, as she says. And yeah, those seem to be traits of the blood, so to speak. And I don't mean literally from the blood, but just an inherited trait, having that switch just on naturally. And it varies in degrees as far as the intensity, but nonetheless, those do seem to follow family lines pretty closely. And not like every person will experience it, but there does seem to always be, one in a family of several that will have that turned on if there's a history of it in the family. Can be more, can be all of them, but not generally. It doesn't seem to manifest as consistently throughout siblings, but who knows? It's strange, but that's what we do here on the Paranormal Portal. It's all strange all the time. That's how we like it, ladies and gentlemen. So I hope you liked tonight's show. I hope you're incredibly entertained and enjoying the shows. And I hope that you'll keep tuning in. Let's see, what is today? Today's Tuesday, right? So tomorrow is our Wednesday show. Yes, it is Tuesday. Tomorrow's Wednesday show, and it'll be 2 hours. And Don, of course, will be joining me. And we'll be getting into it right here on the Paranormal Portal. So 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 days a week. There's a portal happening. I'd love it if you'd like the stream tonight. If you'd also subscribe, that'd be great. Ring the bell to get the notifications. But if you're not getting notifications, just know that every night at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, there will be a portal happening. So watch for it. And also follow us on Facebook, because I always post the promos there. Letting people know we're about to start, or I usually put them out about a half hour before the shows, so roughly thereabouts. So make sure to follow us there, and you can follow us at facebook.com/Paranormal Portal Radio. So look for Paranormal Portal Radio, and you'll find our Facebook site. There's another one out there on Facebook that I've been trying to get rid of, but I haven't been successful yet in getting that page purged. It's an old page. Somebody had Paranormal Portal at some point, and it's just been abandoned and inactive for quite some time, but it still exists. I don't think it's older than my page, but it's another Paranormal Portal page. So if you're subscribed to that one, you won't see any show notifications. You'll only see it on the Paranormal Portal Radio one, so make sure you got the right one. And follow us on Twitter at Paranormal Portal, Portl. That's our Twitter name. So if you do twitter.com/Paranormal Portal with Portl, you'll find it. That's me. I'm there posting the nightly shows as well. So watch for it. And if you've got experiences of your own and like to tell me about them, love to hear from you. You can email me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to get in touch with you and see if you'll be a guest on the podcast, or if you want to share it on one of the call-in shows, you're welcome as well. So, all right, everybody, that's it for me. I'm all done. I'm out of here, but just remember, I love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice, take care of each other, help each other out, find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. Love you guys, and have a great night, and I'll see you again tomorrow night. Don't miss it. All right. Sweet dreams, everybody.